Good morning. Great to see you all this morning. What a lovely time worshipping the Lord together. That was gorgeous. Really lovely to be here with you. So we're finishing this morning our series on heaven. And the reason we've done a teaching series on heaven is not just so that we know what it's going to be like when we get there, but it's about how it makes a difference to our here and now. So it's like, okay, so that's what that's going to be like. So then now I need to live like this. It's about here and now. And so in our final one of the series this morning, we're looking at this parable that Jesus told. A parable is sometimes what they call an earthly story with a heavenly meaning. So we can get it, we understand what the story is, but there's a meaning behind it. And in the Bible, this parable is called, well, in this translation we've just read, the parable of the bags of gold, or in older versions it's called the parable of the talents. I'll explain that. And in our teaching series, if you picked up the little postcard, it said the day of the Lord's coming. But you know what it really is? When you actually read this passage, what it really is the answer to one of the age-old, most important questions of life. How should I spend my life? And people across the globe would answer that question in many different ways, wouldn't they? You know, some people would say that it doesn't matter what you're doing as long as you're happy. You know, that's how you should spend your life. It's about being happy. And others would say, well, it's about being successful. How I should spend my life is being as successful as possible because otherwise it's a waste of a life. And still others might say, well, how should I spend my life? Well, it's all about family, or it's all about friends, or it's all about helping others. We'd all have different answers to that. Well, this parable is basically Jesus setting out his stall, telling us his answer to that question, how should I spend my life? He's already told us what life is about. Love the Lord your God with all your heart, soul, mind, and strength, and love your neighbor as yourself. And now we get down to the nitty-gritty. And now, Jesus, how do I spend my life? How do I spend my days? What should I focus on? These are great questions to be thinking of at the beginning of a new term. What should my priorities be? How should I spend my life? And Jesus tells this story, this parable for us as a picture. It's to help us see what he thinks about how we should spend our lives. And just to put this in context, we should realize that when Jesus tells this story, when he says these words, this is just days before he's crucified. He knows exactly what's going to happen. He knows the events that are going to unfold. And so he speaks with extra urgency. He really wants his followers to know the whole point of life and what they should be doing, how they should spend their lives. He tells us with such urgency. And the answer is, we should spend our lives putting to good use what God has entrusted us with. There it is. That's Jesus' answer. But what's amazing about this is that we don't normally get to see into the future, do we? Like you and I make decisions all the time in our lives, don't we, about various things that we have to do. And we just kind of have to go with the information we've got at the time, and we have to make our best decision and hope it's the right thing. And we don't get to see into the future how it's going to pan out. Then when time passes, we get to the future and we go, some decisions we might go, okay, that was a good one. Glad I made that decision, that one turned out okay. And in other decisions, we might kind of go, if I knew then what I know now, I might have done things a little bit differently. But we don't have that privilege of going to the future to check it out. The beauty of this passage is that it's like Jesus takes us by the hand and he walks us to the future. And it's like he pulls back the curtain just enough, and we see through and we go, oh, that's what's going to matter at the end of it all. That's what people are going to be rewarded for. That's what I need to spend my life on. That's enough. And he walks us back to the here and now. And he says, now you know. Now I've told you. That's what's going to happen at the end. That's who's going to be rewarded for what. And that's now how I want you to live. He says, spend your life putting to good use that which I've entrusted you with. That might be all kinds of different things for different ones of us. You know, we have been entrusted with, families. We've been entrusted, some of us, with homes, with friends, with financial situations, with natural inclinations, gifts, abilities. We've been given a measure of faith. We have all come through various experiences. We've been entrusted with spiritual gifts, all manner of things. And Jesus says, now spend your days putting to good use what I have entrusted you with. So, quick unpack of this parable. The master in the story is Jesus, and the servants are Jesus' followers. The bags of gold that we're told about, or talents that they talked about in older versions of it. A talent is quite helpful to know, actually the older version, because a talent was the largest unit of currency that they had at the time, and it was worth thousands. So it says a little bag of gold. It's not like a little bag of pennies. This was actually worth thousands. Some people estimate that it was worth about 20 years' wages for a manual labourer. So actually, if you had 5 bags of gold or silver then, 5 talents, it's basically like being a multi-millionaire today, I guess. So he gives these out to the servants before he goes away, and those things that he gives, those bags of gold that he gives out to his servants, they represent the things that he's given us to use in life. And we read at the end, it doesn't go well, does it, for the one who hides what they were given away, and he doesn't put it to good use. The one who was given 1 bag of gold buries it, keeps it safe. The master comes back and is not impressed. But it's the ones who's been given the 5 and the 2 bags of gold who've put theirs to good use and have made more that are rewarded. So that's the parable in a nutshell. What is Jesus trying to say to his people then? And what does he want us to learn from it now? I've just pulled out 3 simple things from this parable for us. Firstly, he's gone away, but he's coming back. One of the most famous experiments of social science is what they call the marshmallow experiment. Have you seen this? There's great videos of it online. So basically, they take a nice big fluffy marshmallow and they place it on a plate in a bare room with nothing else there. And they take a child into the room and they sit a child in front of the marshmallow. And then the grown-up goes in with them and says, how lovely a marshmallow. You can eat this marshmallow if you like. But actually, if you don't eat it, and while I'm out of the room, you just sit there and leave it and don't eat it, then when I come back, you can have that marshmallow and I'll give you another one. So the last thing the grown-up always says is, I'll be back. Off they go and close the door. And it is hilarious watching these videos, isn't it, of what the kids do. I've seen 1 or 2 that just like, boom, wolf it in, crack on, straight away, it's gone. That might be me. And then quite a lot of them, you can see the temptation, you can see the wrestle going on in their minds, can't you? Like, ooh, I'm going, no, I'm not, ooh, you know, they absolutely don't know what to do. And then they hear the door open. Relief, the grown-up is back. I can have my marshmallow, I can have my second one, yes. But it's really interesting. It's supposed to teach about patience and delayed gratification, all that kind of thing, isn't it? But it got me thinking about the difference something it makes when we know someone's coming back. So if the adult had just left them alone with a marshmallow, the adult wasn't coming back, do whatever the heck they wanted with that marshmallow, couldn't they? Stick it to the ceiling, jump on it, eat it straight away, wouldn't matter. The grown-up wouldn't be back to see what they did with it. In this parable, we're told the master was going on a journey. It was obviously a long enough journey that he needed people to look after things while he was gone. He entrusts his property, entrusts his money to them. After a long time, the master returned. I guess if the master wasn't coming back, it wouldn't matter what they did with their bags of gold. They could do whatever they wanted. He would never know what they'd done with it. And if Jesus wasn't coming back, what difference would it make what I do with the things that he's entrusted me with in life? If he's not going to be back and he's not going to be interested in what I've done with my life, then I can do as I jolly well please. But Jesus tells us a story where the master does come back. Jesus is coming back, and he's going to want to know what we've done while he was away. It means that while Jesus is away, we're in a state of work. This is a time of work, of diligence, of service. That's the state that we're in. In 2019, we are in a particular part of this story, aren't we? We're living in a particular act of the play where our master is away, but it doesn't stay like this forever. We shouldn't get too settled. The next act is coming, and it's when Jesus returns and he wants to know what we've done with the abilities we've been given, with the faith we've been given, the family situation, the spiritual gifts, the finances that he's giving us. You might have seen those bumper stickers or the t-shirts where it says, "Jesus is coming, look busy." It's not quite that. It's not quick doing something just in case he comes back. But it's like, actually, what about those kids with the marshmallow? What about if we engage differently with life because we are fully aware that he is coming back? That is the first thing he wants us to know from this. He's gone away. He's not bodily here right now, though he is absolutely here by his Spirit. We felt that this morning. We know it in our lives. He's gone away, but he is coming back. Second thing I think he wants us to know from this passage is that you have been entrusted with your own unique blend. So we're in church, right? So confession is okay. I know we've done our official confession this morning, but I've got another one for you this morning. Time for me to confess. Some of you will take this harder than others. Some of you might not speak to me again after this because it's so unthinkable. Okay, my confession is I don't like coffee. In this, coffee, yes, Mark, I don't drink coffee. Can you believe it? Oh, yes, excellent. In this coffee drinking culture, in this coffee shop society, I absolutely can't stand the stuff. Never drunk it, never will, don't like it. So I guess if you do like coffee, God bless you in your enjoyment of coffee, by the way. And if you like it, I guess you have your favorite one. It's probably got just the perfect blend of the right coffee beans that you love. Or for others, it might be the perfect blend of tea. Don't drink that either. I know, I'm weird. But for me, it would be like the perfect blend of spices in a good curry, or the perfect blend of cocoa beans in a really good quality chocolate. But actually, you know what, as people, we've each got our own unique blend. Because we're not just one thing, are we? We are a whole mix, a complex mix of various different things that we've been given. When Jesus went to heaven, he made sure he gave his church everything it needed during his absence. And he gave different things to different people and different measures of things to different people. In fact, there are currently approximately 7 billion different unique blends walking this earth that Jesus came up with. And you have been entrusted with yours. We've not all been entrusted with the same things or the same amount of things, but what someone else has been entrusted with really shouldn't be of consequence to us, because it's only our unique blend, what we've been entrusted with, that we're going to have to answer for. And it's worth noting in this passage, the talents the master gave, the amounts the master gave, were worth a lot. He was generous. He made sure everyone had something. Jesus is not stingy. So practically, I would say, start thinking about those things that you've been entrusted with in life and write them down. Write them down. It might be a particular personality trait that you feel, some people mention that. They mention that I'm particularly cheery or I'm caring or whatever. Note that down. That's a gift you've been given. You've been entrusted with that. It might be a natural inclination towards something, and you use that in your career or your job. Absolutely brilliant. Do it to the best of your ability, because he's going to be asking you what you've done with it. It might be a spiritual gift. There are loads of spiritual gifts. You might have a gift of encouragement. You might have a gift of hospitality or prophecy, evangelism, whatever it is. He's going to be asking you what you've done with it. Write down these things. Paul writes about this in his letters to Timothy in the New Testament, and he says, guard what's been entrusted to your care. Guard the good deposit that was entrusted to you. You know, when I look around this room, I know some of you better than others, but when I look around, I see this room absolutely bursting with the things that we've been entrusted with. I see people in this room who can give such a hug to a good friend that it feels like you've been embraced by heaven itself. You know, that is a gift that you've been entrusted with, and he's going to ask you what you've done with it. I look around this room and I think of wonderful times that I've had in people's homes. It doesn't have to be the most beautiful home. It doesn't have to be the most expensive house. It's about the welcome. It's about the acceptance of who I am. You know, when we open our homes to people, when we invite someone out for coffee, when we come alongside someone, that's not just being kind. That's a prophetic act showing the welcome of God. I look around this room and I see each one a complex mix of incredible academic skills, of spiritual gifts, of caring, of nurturing, of creativity. Viktor Frankl said, everyone has his own specific vocation or mission in life. Everyone must carry out an assignment that demands fulfillment. Therein he cannot be replaced, nor can his life be repeated. Thus, everyone's task is unique as his specific opportunity to implement it. We are bursting with gifts, with opportunities, with personalities, with homes, with family situations. We have been entrusted with things. Get to know your unique blend, what it is that God has given you. I read this week, what a privilege to be here on the planet to contribute your unique donation to humankind. You have been entrusted with your own unique blend, and he's going to come back and he wants to know what you've done with it. I feel excited by that. I'm like, woohoo, it's the start of a new term. I'm on a mission. Let's do this. Okay, and finally, we will each have some explaining to do. We will each have some explaining to do. I heard the story of a great violinist. He is called Niccolo Paganini. I don't know him, but I read the story about him. And in his will, he wanted to leave his amazing violin that he'd played on for all this time and all these concerts and everything. He wanted to leave his violin to the city of Genoa, which is where he was born, which was great, but it came with one condition. And the condition was that the violin was never to be played, which was a really unfortunate condition of the will, because this amazing violin was made of this particular wood that meant that when it was handled and when it was used, it was brilliant and it was beautiful. But as soon as it wasn't touched, as soon as it wasn't used, it would completely decay. And so when he died, his violin was left to the city. No one was allowed to touch it. And it became worm-eaten and completely worthless, sitting in its case. I feel like in lots of areas of life, we see this principle in play, that for something to be at its best, it needs to be used. It's the same in the spiritual realm with spiritual gifts. To get the best out of them, they need to be used. They say of spiritual gifts, they improve by exercise and brighten by being used. The servant in this story who was given one bag of gold didn't use it. He simply wanted to keep it safe, and so he buries it. I wouldn't be dealing well with this passage if I didn't mention what happens to this servant. The consequence for him is that what he was given and didn't use was taken from him. We're told he'll be in darkness, which symbolizes being out from the light of heaven and out from the joy of the Lord. And it speaks about things that sound just like sorrow and anguish, awful. Why? Well, the answer is in how he speaks to the master. In verses 24 and 25, he says, I know that you're a hard man. I was afraid. The servant speaks to the master with the sentiments of an enemy. You know, you're a hard man. And he speaks with the spirit of a slave. I was afraid. Some of us may have gifts that have been buried for a while. Maybe we've been not sure how to use them. Maybe we've had a kind of mentality of keeping for best, keeping it for best. And it's understandable. We go through different seasons in life, don't we? And at different times, sometimes things go to the back and something else comes to the fore. But it is good to regularly reflect to see, actually, what have I been given that I've just tucked away? What have I been burying? What have I not been using? And how could I bring that out and use it again now? Because remember this, they're not ours to bury. It's coming up to the start of a new term, isn't it? And so I've been reflecting on what am I going to do? How am I going to use my gifts? I'll tell you a couple of things. You can join me with them if you want. We're starting up something maybe called Lego Church. We may not call it that because we might get sued by Lego, but it's basically going to be a Saturday morning, once a month club in the cafe space. Whole load of Lego, grown-ups, kids, anyone who wants to come, loads of builds. We're going to do tell a Bible story in 2 minutes, and they've got to build it while you say it. We'll do adults versus kids challenges, all that kind of thing. Basically an access point for people to come in and enjoy this as a community hub and hopefully learn about Jesus in the meantime. If you love Lego, if you know anyone who wants to come, if you want to be on board with us, come speak to me or Andy. We're going to do that. Just trial it this term. We're going to do one Saturday, October, November, December. That's something we're doing because I'm like, let's get on with this. Let's do it. What have we got to lose? This is our one shot at life, right? And he's going to come back and say, what did you do? You had that great cafe space. What did you do? You had a passion for evangelism, Naomi. What did you do? So we're going to try it. And the other thing is we're going to do a daytime alpha course this term, probably on a Thursday morning, probably starting beginning of October. I'm just going to run it. Nobody may be with me, but I will be there. I was going to say drinking coffee. I won't be drinking coffee. I will be there with my glass of water and some pastries, and we're going to watch the Alpha DVDs, have a discussion, just a safe place for people to come and explore this stuff because it's short. Time is short, and we want to do what we can with what we've been entrusted with. Richard L. Evans said this, the tragedy of life is not that it ends so soon, but that we wait so long to begin it. The master in the parable says to the two servants who put their money to good use and multiplied them, well done, good and faithful servants. Come and share your master's happiness. Doesn't that just sound amazing? Oh my goodness. You'll say, well done, I see all that you did. I see the stuff you went through and it was rotten and it was hard and it was horrible, but you plowed on through and you were faithful and I saw that you did that. I saw that you spoke to that person about me. I saw that you welcomed people into your home, even when it wasn't tidy enough. You said, come round anyway. I know you need a cuppa. He sees it. He sees that little bit of faith we've got, like as small as a mustard seed sometimes. We're hanging on by a thread, but he sees that we open our Bible and go, okay, Lord, okay, if you're there, I want to hear from you today. He sees that and he loves it and he wants to reward it. I want him to say to me, well done, good and faithful servant. Come and share your master's happiness. We've had the curtain pulled back in reading this story this morning. And we've peeked through and we've seen it. We know the people who put this stuff to good use and say, hey, and now there's this. I've got this to show you. They're the ones that get rewarded. It's not about being successful. It's not about how great you are at stuff. It's not. He gives different things to different people. That's not up to us what we've been given. Whatever we've been given, just let's use it. Let's use it for Jesus. Let's use it to relieve the suffering of others. Let's use it to build his kingdom. Let's use it to be the best us that we can be with our own unique personal blend that he has entrusted us with. The Bible tells us that Jesus has honor in store for those that honor him. There's a crown. Listen to this, 2 Timothy. Now there is in store for me the crown of righteousness, which the Lord, the righteous judge, will award to me on that day, and not only me, but also to all who have longed for his appearing. There's a crown for us. There's a throne. Listen to what Jesus says in Revelation 3. To the one who is victorious, I will give the right to sit with me on my throne. There is a throne. And there's a kingdom. Jesus says later in this chapter, then the king will come. He will say, "Come, you who are blessed by my Father, take your inheritance, the kingdom prepared for you since the creation of the world." So what does this mean for us this week? First, you've got to make sure you're in the story. This story is about Jesus and his followers, his friends, those people who've entrusted their lives to him. If you don't know Jesus as your own personal Lord, the King of your life, the one you answer to, the one you bow the knee before, you can do that today. We just say, "Sorry, thanks, please." We say, "Sorry for living my own way instead of for you. Thank you that you've done everything by dying and raising again, that I can come to know you. Please come into my life." Get yourself in the story. And secondly, get familiar with what you've been entrusted with. For some of us, we might have to ask God for the first time, what is it that you've given me? I don't know those things that you've given me. Just ask him. Just ask him to drop it into your mind so you can see what you've been entrusted with. For others of us, we got some digging to do. We got to dig up that stuff we've buried, and we've got to get it out. We've got to shine it up, and we've got to use it. And to live in a way that says we believe Jesus is coming back one day and he's going to ask me about what I've done with my life and what he's entrusted me with, I feel that just sounds too big for me. It sounds too general, but I got to get home and get lunch and deal with little kids. Whoa, that's too big. So actually what we're going to do is we're going to finish by thinking about something we could do this week. What could you actually put into practice this week? Because God's entrusted you with it, and you want to put it to good use. Because actually, don't forget that our lives are simply made up of weeks and months, aren't they? And so if you do something this week with what God has given you, if he comes back at the end of this week, then you've got something to show him. And then you do it again the following week, and the following week, and the following week, until he comes back and you show him. And he says, "Well done, good and faithful servant. Come and share your master's happiness." And sometimes at Christchurch, we ask people to come out to the front if they want to receive prayer for something, if they want to respond to something. And we're not going to do that this morning, and I'll tell you why. Because I don't really want to give anyone a chance to opt in or out of this. I believe this is a message for all of us. And so quite simply, as Rolf and the team come back up, these guys are simply going to sing a song over us. You don't need to join in. You don't need to look at the words. They're simply going to sing over us. And we're going to have a little time now to ask God what it is that he has entrusted us with. It might be stuff that you absolutely know. Some of us know it. We're like, yes, okay, that needs to be front and center again. Some of us are not quite sure. Some of us have maybe lost our confidence in what we've got to offer in life. And so I would encourage you to ask God now, what is it? What is it that you want me to be doing? What is it you've given me? And how can I use that this week? And then I want us to be really specific. Ask God, how can I do something with that this week? And then you just repeat it week after week after week till he comes.